Welcome to episode 4 of Pest Expert Chats, a podcast series in which PCT interviews members of Syngenta's technical services team, and they share their insights about a variety of pest control topics. I'm Brad Harbison, and my guest today is Eric Paysen, the Technical Services Manager for the Western region for Syngenta. In the following podcast, we'll talk to Eric about scorpions, one of the oldest known groups of arthropods and a significant pest in certain regions of the country. We'll also learn about Syngenta's Secure Choice Scorpion Assurance Program. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me. Scorpions are one of my favorite topics, so I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, and we're definitely looking forward to hearing to getting your insights on these pests. So,
Absolutely.
Eric, to start with, as I mentioned, it's kind of a regional pest. In what regions of the country and in what types of accounts do scorpions represent the greatest public health threat?
Sure. So scorpions are actually found throughout most of North America. As a kid, I was actually stung by a scorpion in South Carolina. I still remember that vividly. But, there are about 90 species in the United States, and all but 4 of those species occur only west of the Mississippi River. So the western U.S. is really where we find the most scorpions. They're a very desert adapted type of creature, so they do very well in hot, arid areas. And I'd say the desert southwest of the United States is definitely, literally speaking, a hotbed for scorpion pressure. And your other part of the question, in terms of the accounts that scorpions present a problem, would really be mostly homes, but any place where people spend time and have exposure to stings from scorpions. When we're talking about homes, it's really a place where people want to feel safe, and if they have to worry about being stung when they put a shoe on or getting in bed or even sitting having dinner, that's not something that is welcome. So I'd say residential is really where most of the action is with scorpions.
Yeah. And what species of scorpions are of greatest concern in the pest management industry, and why?
Yeah, so really any scorpion that comes inside is a concern, but the only one that is considered medically important is the Arizona bark scorpion. That's Centroides sculpturatus, and that is a species of scorpion that is endemic to the Sonoran Desert in the desert southwest. The states that it affects primarily would be parts of southeastern California, Nevada, Arizona, a little bit of New Mexico, and possibly some of Utah. I don't hear a whole lot about Utah, but it's definitely not out of the question that they could deal with them there too.
Yeah. And let's take a look at the PMPs roles. I mean, what role can PMPs play in providing scorpion control services in both residential and commercial accounts?
Yeah, so in areas with really high scorpion pressure, and for those that don't live in scorpion country, we're talking about going out around a residential home with a black light and being able to spot 50 or more bark scorpions that are just roaming around the yard. That's a tremendous amount of pressure, and without the support and everything that a pest management professional provides, those things are certainly going to be getting inside. The stings can cause some pretty serious medical reactions that might result in hospitalization. So this is one area where, we're not simply providing a service that is catered to a nuisance pest. This really is an important pest to protecting health of the public, and making perimeter applications, making recommendations on cultural control. All these types of things are really important for folks living in these areas.
And what do PMPs need to understand about scorpion biology and behavior in order to successfully control these pests?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there. That could be an hour-long podcast right there.
Right.
But just to touch on a few high points, specifically with the Arizona bark scorpion, which is our most important scorpion. This scorpion is unfortunately also the most likely to enter homes. And the reason that these scorpions end up inside is that they're an arboreal species. So a lot of the scorpions are actually ground burrowers. So they're happy in a hole outside in your yard somewhere. But these Arizona bark scorpions climb, and what happens is they climb stucco or the exterior of a house, and they end up on the eave line of that house. And it's virtually impossible to completely scorpion-proof an Eve line like that. And so the scorpions find their way into the attic. When they're crawling around in the attic, it's very hot up there during the daytime, and any place where you have an opening through drywall or ceiling, such as a tan light or a ceiling fan or duct work or anything like that, air conditioning from the inside kind of bleeds through in those areas, and the scorpions detect that coolness and they move towards it. And so it's not uncommon to literally have scorpions dropping from the ceiling in houses, where there's a lot of scorpion pressure. So realizing that and realizing that your best line of defense is on the outside at the base of that home, to get scorpions a dose of treatment before they can get into that attic and then access the inside of the home. And making sure that trees and things like that might touch the roof line are also trimmed back, which is just good IPM practice all around.
Yeah, and Eric, that sort of leads into my next question. You talk a little bit about some of the perimeter control being especially important with scorpion management. Just maybe talk about it in all-encompassing. What are some of the best practices for effective scorpion management?
Sure. So, scorpions are a predator, and they need food. They can go quite a while without eating, but at the end of the day, they're going to need a source of food, and food would be things like roaches and crickets and earwigs and all these other peripheral pests, and those breed in areas where there's clutter or there's excessive vegetation. So basically just maintaining a clean, clutter-free perimeter around the home is important. Things like wood piles and debris piles where things can get in there and breed create great opportunities for scorpions. And then with the bark scorpion specifically, they're climbers. So if you have a tree limb that's touching the roof, the scorpions could be in that tree, direct access to the roof, bypassing any perimeter pest control that you might have done with residual products. And then also palm trees are a huge problem. So palm trees typically have the scales that are left on the trunk after the tree has been pruned. And if you want to hear some horror stories about scorpions, talk to some of those tree pruners that have, taken a palm frond off and had 50 bark scorpions fall all over them, because that happens. That's where they tend to overwinter. So keeping those trees pruned really closely, and there's a technique that's called skinning the trunk of those palm trees, where you basically take off all the old remnants of scales from the trunk. That reduces those areas where scorpions can breed in high numbers.
And Eric, what can consumers do to assist PMPs in successfully managing scorpions around homes and businesses?
Yeah, so the number one thing is making some efforts to scorpion-proof your home. So it's kind of the bane of pest control is getting consumers to understand and correct some of these issues. And the number one that I would say is door sweeps. When we're talking about scorpions or any other ground-crawling pest, if you go inside, close the front door, and look at the bottom of the door, bend down and look at the bottom of the door, if you see daylight there, that door might as well be left wide open 24/7 when you're the size of a pest. It's just an open door. So going around the house, making sure that screens are fitting well, that door sweeps are in place is huge. I mean, that makes a lot of difference for pretty much any pest you might deal with. And then just assisting with landscaping things, some of the stuff we've talked about with palm trees, making sure that those are neatly pruned and making sure that there's no bushes or tree limbs or things like that are touching the structure would be greatly appreciated by pest management and would really help to ensure the safety of families living in those homes.
Yeah, and I want to take a look at the control and maybe talk about Syngenta. What is Syngenta doing to develop products for this market segment and support the industry's scorpion management efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, this is one of my favorite topics. I happen to live in Arizona, so I'm right in the middle of scorpion country, and a big part of my job is putting together research programs that support the industry. And I'm constantly involved in research projects with scorpions. In fact, last week I was just involved with I have a collaboration between a local PMP and a local entomologist, and we had gone out and collected 500 Arizona bark scorpions, and I had all those things in a tank in the back seat of my car, getting ready to do some research with those. So Syngenta is always working in this local market to improve with what we know about scorpions and treatment practices. And as a result of that knowledge and that work, we've put together the Scorpion Assurance Program, which is the only thing like it in the industry. And we feel very confident with our products and with the treatment program that's recommended there that PMPs can have success in combating what is really a very tough, difficult pest. You know, everybody says that cockroaches would survive a nuclear holocaust. I'd like to double down and say that scorpions would outdo the cockroach even. It's one tough creature.
And Eric, as part of what you mentioned, you talked about the Secure Choice Scorpion Assurance Program. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What all is involved, and how can how can PMPs use this program to help control scorpions?
Yeah, so there are a couple products that are part of our protocol. It's actually a very simple protocol. Demand CS is the mainstay of this program. Our microcap works very well out in the desert. It's very carefully formulated to have different sizes of microcaps that are lipophilic, so they readily attach to an insect's exoskeleton. And then as that scorpion is crawling around, they bump into something and burst that capsule, and the lambda that's in those capsules is very hot on scorpions. So we have really good knockdown and really good long-term residual. But what we recommend is using demand, around the base of those homes, so that as a scorpion is crawling around looking for something to climb on, they climb through that treatment that they'll die before they ever gain access to the house. So all those entry points, breeding areas, cinder block walls are very common out in the desert as a perimeter around people's yards, and that's actually a place where scorpions breed. So, focusing on breeding sites, possible entry points into homes, any area where there is clutter, and we're recognizing that, hey, there could be some breeding going on here. We recommend treatments there. And then we couple that effort with applications of Advion insect granules. And so the Advion insect granules are not going to have a direct mortality effect with the scorpions, but those insect granules are very, very effective at eliminating cockroaches, crickets, earwigs, all of these things that are food for scorpions. And so if there's just no food, no resources in your customer's yard, the scorpions will migrate to other places. They need to eat just like everything else. So, those two products in combination with pretty simple application techniques can result in very consistent scorpion control.
Eric, what benefits can PMPs get from following any of Syngenta's Secure Choice Assurance programs?
Sure, it's a great question. So, before we put together a Secure Choice program, these protocols are thoroughly tested with both PMPs and academics in the university environment. So by the time we put together a protocol, we have great confidence that it's going to provide success. And we feel strong enough about that if a PMP is following that protocol to the best of their ability and they're not getting control, Syngenta will provide free product to help remedy that situation, as well as engagement on a local level from our experts, either myself or your local area sales manager, to look at what's being done, see if there's something that's slipping between the cracks, and help you have success, because that's our goal at the end of the day.
Well, hey, Eric, I know you shared a lot of great information. There's still a lot of great information out there. What are some good technical resources that the PCOs can access to learn more about scorpions?
Yeah, so, in terms of scorpions, there's not as much out there as other pests, but Malice would be a good place to start. And then Syngenta's Scorpion Assurance Program page also has more details about application techniques and things like that. That's a great place to learn. And then, if you're in the desert Southwest, I give in-person classes all the time where I share photos and videos and talk a lot more in depth about the biology of scorpions. So, if you're doing pest management in this part of the country, plug into some of those local workshops and come to one of our classes in person. Most people really seem to get a lot out of it, so we'd be happy to support in that way.
Eric, thanks again for joining us and for sharing with us some of your tips for scorpion control and also telling us a little about Syngenta's Secure Choice Scorpion Assurance Program.
Absolutely.
And thanks to all of our listeners for joining us, and have a great day.